This is a very good question. I appreciate you asking it. And what happened with me was not necessarily one major event, although many Christians on my YouTube channel like to try and claim that it was. They try and make this into some sort of emotional triggering event that caused me to change my mind. But the reality is, it was my study into the historicity of the New Testament that really started to drag me down and away from Christianity. There's so many different resources that I can't overemphasize. Myth Vision Podcast YouTube channel is very good. Also, on my YouTube channel, I have a playlist called New Testament Debunked, and I actually made a mini documentary about Jesus Christ and how he has been completely ripped off from pre-existing motifs about Dionysus. He also has been ripped off from Romulus and Osiris, and other motifs were all kind of conglomerated together, and I have the whole history of it on my YouTube channel. I think it's called Jesus is Dionysus. That's the name of the video on my channel, and I spell out very cleanly why I think that Jesus was a historicized fictional character. I know that many different atheists and agnostics want to continue to argue that he was a historical character who was mythologized over time into being what he is today, but I'm on the fence about that. I'm actually quite open to the idea that he didn't exist at all, and I know that triggers a lot of people, but I am really open to the mythicist position. Dr. Richard Carrier made a wonderful book called Jesus from Outer Space, which I can't recommend enough. It's so good and so spot on. So to answer your question, it was just study. It started off with me realizing that the Gospel of Mark, which was the original first written gospel, and of course we know that wasn't written until decades after Jesus supposedly lived and left, and of course Mark didn't know or walk with Jesus, and then all the other gospels were built off of the Gospel of Mark. And so when you realize that Mark completely ripped off word for word, line by line, idea by idea, in order and in context, the writings of Homer, it really, really debunks, in my opinion, the Gospel of Mark, and therefore the rest of the Gospels as well. I also have a playlist called 50 Reasons to Never Quote Paul Again, where I explain why I think Paul is talking out of his butt in terms of the New Testament. And most people don't realize that Paul wrote about Jesus before the Gospels ever wrote about Jesus too. So Jesus was actually built on the back of Paul's writings and then historicized and exaggerated from there. But long story short, it started there. I started pulling the thread on Paul, then the New Testament, and then eventually I started pulling the thread on the Old Testament, and we will get way more into that. Thanks.